So if you're a woman, which I'm assuming I'm watching this, a lot of women I find have been told things like, or when they go on YouTube, they see, don't be a boss babe. Men don't like controlling women. And don't be harsh, don't be cruel, don't be selfish. And I mean, who wants to be those things, right? I mean, I know to some degree, whether women like that term or not, some embrace it, but the idea of the boss babe, is that I'm in charge at work and that I have a plan and that I'm not taken advantage of, but I'm in control of my life. Hi, this is Bob Grant, and welcome to our show today. And today we're going to talk about how to avoid overgiving in a relationship. We're going to talk about doing this instead. So if you're a woman, which I'm assuming I'm watching this, a lot of women I find have been told things like, or when they go on YouTube, they see, don't be a boss babe. Men don't like controlling women. And don't be harsh, don't be cruel, don't be selfish. And I mean, who wants to be those things, right? I mean, I know to some degree, whether women like that term or not, some embrace it, but the idea of the boss babe, is that I'm in charge at work and that I have a plan and that I'm not taken advantage of, but I'm in control of my life. And I do things in a way that are empowering, that makes me feel good, but that can come across to men as prickly. Or controlling or worse. And so what I find often is that when women want to avoid that, what do we tend to do when we're something we don't like? We go as far away from it as possible. So if someone calls me mean, well, I don't want to be mean. So the opposite of mean would be giving or kind. And so just to make sure I'm not mean, I'm not going to do stuff that's just kind. I'm going to do extra stuff that's super kind. I'm going to be so kind that I can't even get near mean, that I don't even smell like mean. There's not even a whiff of it on me, that no one could possibly accuse me of being mean because I'm afraid of it, or I've seen someone growing up that was mean and I made a promise to myself that I was never going to be that. And that sounds good on paper. I mean, it makes sense that why would I want to be mean? The problem with overcompensating is it ends up creating another problem. And if we're going to talk about, how not to do something, let's first understand why we're doing it. If we don't understand why we're doing something, all the fixes in the world are just about throwing a bunch of Band-Aids on something and hoping eventually we hit the injury or the cut. Now let's find out what the cut is. So if I overcompensate, it'll make me feel good short term. See, one of the things if I overgive, and what women tell me, is it feels really good to give. And people like receiving when we give. Men like it when a woman gives, at least short term they do. But men don't realize, ladies, what it costs you when you give like this. So if it's about not giving as much, isn't that going to make me selfish? Well, technically, it is going to make you a little more selfish. But what I mean, let's do the spectrum. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's say your overgiving is a 9. At times. And if you overgive as a 9, and let's say on the other end of the spectrum, being selfish or self-absorbed is a 1 or 2. Well, the fear is that, if I stop giving so much, I'm going to go the other side and be a 1 or 2, and I don't want to be that person over there. But as you go from being an 8 or 9 and you stop giving less and you start getting back toward the middle, 6, 7, maybe 5, that technically is more selfish. That is more self-centered than when you're at a 9. But we're talking about going from being a doormat toward actually a healthy balance. So is it going to feel that you're more selfish? Yes. Is it going to look to others that are used to you giving for everything that you're being more selfish? Yes. It is going to look that way to them. It doesn't mean it's true, but compared to the way you've been, yes, it is more selfish. But being more selfish, getting back toward normal, is not the same as actually being selfish or being self-absorbed, even though it will feel like it's short term. So let's point out 3 things to focus on for us to identify and to get us out of it. So if you'll keep in mind, if you'll pretend, I like to do the idea if I'm walking around with you, if we're having coffee or just shooting the breeze, and I'm reminding you of these things. I think you probably know them on one level, but I'm just reminding you. So number 1, I want to remind you that love is first about value, not about giving. And this, I'm talking to women primarily with this. Love, a man loving you, is about you creating and maintaining your value, not you giving to create value. If I'm talking to men, I'm much more focused on Be the man, take care of yourself, get your house in order. And one of the best ways you express love is by giving to her, protecting her, giving her, making her feel safe. Most every man understands this, and most men relish this. With women, I say it's different. It's with you, it's remember what men want. We don't need you out giving us. That's one of the issues when women ask me, should I pay for dinner? I mean, you can pay for dinner, but what I don't want you to get into is he paid for this and therefore I paid for that just to be even. Men don't really care about fair. I know there's some exceptions where men do, but by and large, we don't really care as much about fair. What we care more about is creating an emotional response in you. You lighting up like a Christmas tree, you being proud of us, you being impressed by us, you being happy, you smiling. That humming noise you make when you're having your favorite dessert, that's the prize. That's much more important to us. Because remember, some of you've watched this before and you've heard me say, we can go make more money as men. We can do that. What we can't do as much of, we can't go buy it, is getting that kind of emotional response. That kind of emotional response is priceless. That's the thing that we love more than anything else. We don't mind making more money to get that kind of reaction from a woman we're very fond of. So you creating value or you maintain that value, overgiving actually waters it down. If you're giving to create value, you're in your masculine energy. I'm not saying there's not a time or a place for that, but if you want to be cherished more than you want to be respected, I know you want both, but by all means, leave a comment below and tell me, even though I know the answer to this one, I know you want both, but you have to pick a primary way for him to know how to relate to you. If you're going to focus on your value, then you like being cherished, and he likes cherishing you. Most men do. Especially the strong, secure man, he doesn't need someone to outgive him. He doesn't need someone to keep him out. Now, he wants reciprocity in the sense of it's a complementary thing. It's a dance between two equals, but doing it different ways. He protects, he leads, she follows, she rewards. The way I say it is, if he's the head, she's the heart. And this is not about him being lord and boss or him telling you what to do. Most women I talk with, even regardless of your political ideology or your background, they like a strong man. They like a man with a plan. And they may say it differently. And if you're someone that's, been abused, or we're not talking about that. We're not talking about guys that are cruel and mean. We're talking about that masculine energy and strength that women like, that allows them to be soft, that allows them to not have to carry the weight of all the responsibility. I know they can. And I'm just going by what women have told me. But what most tell me is not that I can't provide or I can't take care of stuff. I would just like to have the option not to have to. I would just not like to have that pressure of having to make stuff happen. So value first is one of the ways that will help you guard against overgiving. The second has to do with paying attention to feeling resentful. The resentful can be annoyed, irritated, and if you're feeling that, you're put off, you're flustered, there's a good chance you've probably been overgiving in some area. It's not going to say, hey, you're feeling resentful because 3 days ago, you listen to him talk about his work and listen, and now you want to talk about something and he's not listening at all. Most of the time it won't be that way. Remember, feelings are always faster than thinking. You're going to feel stuff before you can think it through. So in our program, the Campfire Effect, one of the things the women there learn is how to use their emotions and how to listen to their heart so that they don't always have to think and figure stuff out. It's like having a cheat sheet. It's like a part of your brain that alerts you, even when you're not thinking, when you're not aware. It's the way we don't miss something, where we show you how to actually have your intuition work for you, because there's a lot to be said for a woman's intuition. It's a very real thing. And when you bring that into a relationship, then the man gets the benefit of that. Then you're able to reward him with emotions and feelings, those things he really craves. And so paying attention to resentment is one of the ways you can do it to guard against, because what happens if you ignore resentment? This is what a lot of people do, not just women. When you ignore resentment because it doesn't hurt bad enough, because I don't want to be a complainer, because I don't want to do this too much, I don't want to do this too long, all the time where I'm constantly bringing stuff up, I'm pointing stuff out, I don't want to do that. And because it doesn't hurt bad enough. And waiting for it to hurt bad enough means that by the time it comes out, it's going to be really powerful. It's going to be really intense. And because of that intensity, it'll make you feel safer to bring it out. But what he hears, he goes, in his mind, he sees you, it wasn't that big a deal, and all of a sudden, boom, why are you so upset? Why are you complaining so much? And he doesn't see all the things you've tolerated and waited. It's not healthy. Think about it this way, like with a car engine. Your car's going along, and before the engine literally melts or it blows up, you get this light that comes on. Usually it's red and it's really big, and it says engine hot. That's your warning sign to stop the car, or whatever trick you got, cut on the heat to get heat off the engine for all you car people, but to do something, because if you keep going on, this car's engine is going to break down. That's what resentment is. Resentment is not a bad thing. Resentment is your heart's way of trying to get your attention that this isn't working. No one wants to feel resentful. And sometimes resentment gets a bad rap that, oh, you're a resentful person. A resentful person is someone that won't deal with the cause of resentment. That's why they're resentful. There's either stuff in their past that they don't want to forgive and let go of and grieve, or there's an ongoing problem now that they want to, ignore, which leads us to number 3. If you're got this nagging feeling and, with your boyfriend, your fiance, your husband, and you're not sure, question I'm asking, if I'm talking with a client, if you're my client, the question I'm saying is, what are you avoiding? I'm not avoiding anything. I'm not avoiding, Bob. Most likely, if you're stuck, there's a conflict, there's an issue, there's something you're avoiding that you may not want to see, you may not want to face. See, when you give more than you're getting, a lot of times that's easier than facing the thing. And most of the time when someone's avoiding something, the fear is the conflict is something that I don't think has an answer. I've brought it up to him a couple of times, how he interrupts me in public. I've talked to him a few times about his drinking. I've said, when he drives fast, it makes me uncomfortable, but nothing changes. And so we avoid that. Because I brought it up, nothing happens. And what we're avoiding is following through to do whatever it takes to either resolve that conflict or, worst case, end the relationship. And see, that's where the fear kicks in. But I don't want to end the relationship. It's not that I want you to end the relationship either. What I want to get rid of is that I will do anything to avoid ending the relationship. I will tolerate whatever it takes. I will pretend stuff doesn't bother me to avoid ending the relationship. I will swallow my feelings. I will pretend my needs don't matter, because then I'm going to push you a little bit, okay? What I see women do a lot of, and there are men that can do this too, is they think if they hurt enough that their pain will be enough that he will come in and see their pain and change. Ladies, that works sometimes. That rarely works. It may make you feel good that you're suffering for the sake of the relationship, but it will lead to resentment. It will lead to a sense of entitlement. When women, for lack of a better word, nag, part of the reason they nag is because they built up so much resentment. And I'm not trying to be derogatory with that term, but women know what I'm talking about. Is that when they're doing that, that's why it's not enough to say don't nag so much. That's great advice. That's awesome. That's like telling someone hungry, don't be hungry. Super. I can't not be hungry unless someone gives me food or unless they go get some food. I can't stop nagging. Or I can't stop bringing stuff up. I can't stop expressing a concern until the concern is addressed. If I'm talking to a man and he's, complaining, says my wife isn't that affectionate or she's disrespectful to me, okay, why? What's going on that this is happening? I don't know. And I'm pushing him the same way. I'm like, this is too important. At least you tell me it is. To just leave it to, I'm just going to ask her, and hopefully she'll change her behavior. Well, why is she acting this way? Well, what's missing for her? What's upsetting? I'm not saying that he or she or you have to be a therapist, but what's the conflict that we're avoiding? And one of the keys with this, it's not that I have to hammer home a solution as much as if it's a big concern for you, we're going to stick with it. We're going to bring it up again. And if it's something you're stuck with, I'd be happy to help. Part of the reason I still see clients, even with as much stuff on the internet, is I just enjoy working with clients. Back when I was a therapist, before I went into coaching full time, that's when I just learned to love the idea of problem solving and actually finding out what's the quickest way we can come up with a solution. Why does stuff have to take a long time? Because it's not enough to always identify the problem. Okay, we know what we're avoiding. Then it's left with, then what? And sometimes in our private Facebook group, when women will say, what should I do with this problem? Well, I need a lot more details than that. Because if it was a simple answer, you'd already figured it out. And it may be simple, but it may take us a little experimenting to find out why it's not working, what's going on. Is it simply he doesn't want to hear you, or is he mad about something else? And so in the course of asking those questions, I would rather get to the solution of it, which means not just trying 15 different things, but let's take a little time and ask. Let's dig in a little bit. It doesn't have to be super intense, but I want to resolve it as fast as possible. So that if we're going slower, it's so that we can get to the root cause of it, as opposed to just throwing stuff against the wall. That's the beauty of when someone becomes a client, because usually by that point, they're tired enough and they're in enough pain where they're done just looking for Band-Aid stuff for things that might require a few stitches, might require a deep conversation with the man. All right, so those are 3 things that I would have you do. We said, number 1, focus on value, not about giving, and that's your value. Number 2, pay attention to resentment. If you've got an uneasy feeling or something nagging with you, you're probably feeling resentment. If you're not sure what, we said number 3, what are you avoiding? Ask that question. What am I avoiding? And if you'll think in terms of these things, usually you'll be able to identify pretty quickly you're resentful, because the promise I'm going to ask you to make to the man in your life, or the man that's going to be in your life, is that you will not resent him. That doesn't mean you won't let yourself feel it, but you won't let it accumulate. If I'm talking to a man, one of the things I'm having him say is that I won't stay angry at you. It doesn't mean he can never be angry with you, but if he stays angry with you, he's avoiding a conflict too. He'd rather punish you by staying angry. He'd rather punish you by not talking to you for 3 or 4 days. See, that's no good either. So if you like this and this is helpful, be sure and like us and subscribe. And if you want to leave a comment down below, we'd love that. We go through every so often, usually a couple of times a week, and check the comments and respond. If you'd like to visit us at relationshipheadquarters.com, one of the key points of where all this came from is our signature program, the One Women Adore. And the emphasis on that is how women do put their heart first, so that it avoids resentment. And when women do this, something happens that's called the campfire effect. And the campfire effect is the result that women get when your heart comes first. It's that glow that you naturally emit. It's not something you try to do. It's not a technique. It's the natural byproduct of a woman putting her heart first. So we'd love to give that to you there. If you go over to relationshipheadquarters.com, we'd have it. And be sure and look for us next time. Thanks for joining us.